Hello, everyone. Alexandra here. If you're just tuning in to the podcast for the very first time, welcome to Take a Chance on You. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back. We're into season 2, Leaders on Their Way and Aspiring. Season 1, we covered hidden talent, where I explored students and young people entering the workforce, going through their applications for apprenticeships, internships, they're volunteering, and they really relate their stories for the very first time. Season 2, with leaders, we have some fantastic guests joining me to discuss some of the challenges that they're facing, what it means to be a leader in 2025 and beyond. So I'm so excited to have you here. I think what's really unique and special about Take a Chance on You is it was born out of an idea that I had from networking here in London in 2024. I was talking to strangers. I'd meet them for the first time and we talk about the challenges we were facing together, lack of community, resources, and being able to have easy flowing conversations. And I always said to myself, if I was going to launch a podcast, it would be to reflect that and to continue those conversations. So Take a Chance on You is very special. As I say, we're into season 2. I'm so excited to have you here and I hope you enjoy the episodes to come.
Feeling lost in the noise of social media? INSPO cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on INSPO. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download INSPO Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
Welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. I am so excited today to be passing the mic to Ryan Toppin, who is joining us live from Australia. Ryan is a coach and a mentor known for scaling businesses across finance, retail, and services industries. Ryan is currently running Founders Live in Australia, helping startup founders gain exposure and the opportunity to connect with investors. So Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I really appreciate you having me on and having the time to have a quick chat.
That's okay. So Ryan, I think what might be quite nice is I know you describe yourself as someone who strives for partnership and creating meaningful connection. Do you just want to give the listeners a little bit of an introduction into what you're doing and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So I guess background for myself, I come from a sporting background. I really always start there because I think sports really teaches you a lot about interactions with others. It teaches you to really rely on team, to understand people, to really look to get yourself in the best positions and also put others in the best positions. And I think that was ingrained in me really early. And so then as I kind of moved through different stages of my career, I look back and I think I was always going to end up here. I just didn't know how. And now that I'm here, I kind of really go into businesses and like help them. So when a business reaches out to me, I generally have a look at 4 key things. And like we've spoken about this previously, but like I call them the 4 Ps. So I go in and have a look at the people. Do they have the right people in the right positions? I look at their processes. Does everyone understand what they should be doing? I look at their placement, so sales and marketing. Do they know who their customer is and are they talking to their customers' pain points? But then the last one is partnerships. And I see this a lot between companies, people, businesses that are either struggling or succeeding, that who they're connected to, their partnerships and their connections make a massive difference. And so because of that, I then work backwards from there and really try to understand, on a leadership level, on a personal level, on a professional level, what does the connection look like between the team? What does the connection look like between them and their customer? What does the connection look like between the leadership team? There's so many kind of levels of connection that you can kind of dissect. And I think that's what excites me the most about kind of business and helping people scale. It's you really can unlock so much potential by just having a look at those kind of details. And when you start to introduce people to new concepts, like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you like introduce people to new connections that they may not have been in rooms with before, you really see their mind and their opportunities open up. And that's the best part of being a coach, if I'm honest, seeing that aha moment where the penny drops and like, right, I've got it. I understand now. You've taken them on that journey and they get there. That's the best part of it for any coach.
I think it's so important what you mentioned at the end about journey and storytelling and curating that narrative for somebody to come along with you. And then, as you say, that aha moment where they do figure it out and they're able to get to the next step. So I really enjoy that. But one thing you also mentioned, so I saw one of your recent posts and I really liked it in terms of how you view competitors. And I think that fits quite nicely in the partnership realm, not viewing others as if they're going to steal your ideas or create copycat products, etc. But actually, and somebody came on the podcast recently and said exactly the same thing. They don't view them as competitors, but as collaborators. They want to have open conversations and come together.
That scarcity mindset, right? Like that there's not enough out there, that I need to protect my little patch or my customer or whatever. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being jealous of your customer, in that you want to provide the highest levels of service and you want to be there just before your customer needs you, and you want to be there just after they need you. So that whole journey, you're there with the customer, and that's completely fine, because that comes from a good place. It comes from a place of providing the highest level of care, really understanding what's your customer looking for, what are their pain points, what do they need that they're not sure that they need right now. That's completely fine. The issue comes where you have in your mind there is not enough customers out there, and I need to keep, you see this happen where people will down talk their competitors, oh, they do this and I do, I'm different because that's that energy, that vibe that you're putting out. Like, if you think about it in a personal sense, if you were to meet someone, for the first time or the second time or whatever, and they spent all their time talking about how much better they were than the next person or than, previous people that you have interacted with, that's not an attractive quality. That's not something you're naturally going to be drawn to. Whereas if somebody is really comfortable in their own skin and they can talk about, the climate, and they can talk about the environment, and they can talk about, they ask you really in-depth questions about your journey and what are the things that you're going through at the moment and how can we work together? That is a much more conducive environment to a partnership, to a sale, to whatever. And I think that's where people get it wrong, where they look at their customer as, this is just my customer and, no one else can get near them. And it's like, well, if you're not understanding what are people in your industry doing, if I'm not looking at what other coaches are doing, if I'm not looking what other business mentors are doing and learning from them, I'm never going to grow. I'm going to be the same now as I am in 12 months, in 24 months, etc. We were speaking about this just before, but you get the opportunity to pick your pain, right? You can either have pain now, which is potentially seeing someone else doing something better than you, or leveraging AI in a more innovative way than you are, or taking constructive criticism now. You can take that pain, or you can avoid that pain altogether and take the pain of you being in exactly the same place in 12 months' time, in 24 months' time, when your industry has changed and when your customers' needs have changed, etc. So the ball's in your court, really. You get to pick which pain do you want, but you can't have both. You can't have no short-term pain where you're not understanding what's going on in your industry and, potentially being a little bit vulnerable, being open to hearing some things that might hurt a little bit, or coming to terms with the fact that other people are doing things slightly better than you. But if you can understand that's not a personal attack on you, it doesn't devalue you, it actually adds value, because now that you're aware of that opportunity, just because someone's doing it, it proves that it's possible, right? If nobody out there was doing it, maybe it's not possible. But because others are doing it, it shows you that it can be done. And if someone else can do it, there's absolutely no reason why, with an appropriate amount of time and support, why you couldn't get there as well.
I think it's with competition. I mean, it reminds me of brand collaborations. We've seen so many taking place this year. Definitely my LinkedIn and Instagram have been filled with beauty brands, fashion brands collaborating together. And it's the opportunity to tap into a new community, a new audience. So as you say, we shouldn't look at it as we want to keep all of our customers and we don't want any of our competitors to take something away from us that belongs to us. But although those customers come to you and yes, you treat them well and they're loyal, they're still going to shop around in the future. They won't
Mm.
always stay with just you for your solution. There's other opportunities for them out there. So it's about tapping in to partnerships and collaborations that come your way, because that will only increase over the next 5 to 10 years. Community is such a buzzword this year. Everybody's talking about it. And with that comes the opportunity to, as I say, partner with brands doing similar things to you, but also brands that aren't doing anything related to your product. It's actually a really interesting concept as well, and just seeing what's going on out there.
Yeah, I think we have to understand that the way that like we as consumers expect information to be transferred, the way that we consume information, media, etc., has really evolved, and we can't be looking through a 1990s lens or a 2000s lens or a 2010s like if you're doing that, you're missing the point, right? Like your environment is giving you clues. It's up to you to then pay attention to them and adjust. Now, I'm definitely not an advocate for going out there and doing what everyone else is doing and going, but you have to understand there's certain things that you need to be a part of to stay relevant, because your customers expect that. If your customers are seeing certain things and you're not doing them, that tells them one or two things. It tells them, one, that you're not capable, or it tells them, two, that you're not willing. And neither one of those things is something that a customer wants to come to you and say, here, take my credit card, despite the fact that I know that you're not willing or capable. Like, you want your customers to really see you as a solution to things that are going wrong with them. People are more than happy to pay for things as long as they're getting the value out of it. And that's up to you as an individual, company, whatever, to assess and make those decisions based on, my customer expects this of me. This is my responsibility to them. Like, I use this example all the time. Like, McDonald's global revenue in 2024 was somewhere to the tune of $25 billion. Their marketing spend was somewhere in the vicinity of $2.3 billion. That's roughly 12% of their marketing spend, so of their global revenue, went to marketing spend. And you think, okay, if a company that's as recognizable, arguably the most recognizable logo in human history, if they're out there on every billboard, on every YouTube ad, on every cinema ad, if they're doing that, that gives you a clue, right? That they have found something that works and they're leveraging it. That clue then comes to you. What am I doing in my business? Do I take marketing seriously? Do I take branding seriously? Am I understanding what other people in and outside of my industry are doing? And am I then leveraging that? Because if I'm not, if I still think that just providing the best service is going to be enough in 2025, 2026, we've missed the mark by a long shot. And I think those of us who didn't grow up around social media, we're a little bit more on the back foot with that. We have to understand that, branding and putting yourself out there is not bragging. Like, it's really not. The last thing that you want to do is be the best kept secret, because your customers are going to end up buying or spending their money on an inferior product. And that's not to down on your competition, but if you're providing this incredible service, they're still going to go and buy it. It's just not going to be from you. And you've done the wrong thing by your customer by not putting yourself out there. So I know that obviously we started talking about competition and how you view it, but like, my point to that post was about your scarcity mindset. Like, do not put yourself in this little box that this is your little patch and that's all that, that's all that's meant for you. Like, you've got to think bigger than that. Like, and if you can't see that you're the one that's put this, circle around you. I don't know if you've ever seen this. They did an experiment. I don't know if it was an ant or a spider, but they basically put it on a piece of paper and they drew a circle around it, and it kept stopping at the edges of the circle, despite the fact that obviously it could have just walked straight over it. It
No,
did
I
that.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, so interesting, right? It kept doing that right up until it realized that that circle wasn't actually holding it back. As soon as it crossed the line, you can draw as many circles around it as you want. It will just keep running over them. And what that can teach us is that these little imaginary circles we put around our mind, or like we give these limitations to ourselves, they will hold us back for as long as we believe in them. The second we realize that they are not actual limitations, that's when you can explode out of that little circle.
I completely agree. There's 2 points that I've thought about when you were talking. One, so there's a fashion brand that I follow on TikTok, and one thing that I love about their content is they do behind the scenes. So they bring their employees to the forefront of the videos, which we're seeing a lot more of. And again, that's another trend, as you say, brands not being so behind the curtain. They need to be coming to the forefront and showing who they are, who works for them. Their employee branding is just as important as their business branding, as far as
People
I'm
buy people,
concerned.
right? Like they want a connection to the
Yeah.
people.
So with this brand in particular, they do kind of a behind the scenes, tell us what you're wearing. So the employees show what they're wearing in terms of their clothes, because it's a fashion brand, and they're outrightly talking about brands that they aren't collaborating with, they're not partnering with just yet, but just by that exposure and saying, I really love this brand, etc., it just allows you to go and explore that community, go and explore that brand. So going back to that earlier point about collaboration, partnerships, so important. And then to your point about feedback, and we spoke about this, as you said before the podcast today, it's not personal. And I say this so many times, Ryan, you said this as well. It's not, unless you're receiving feedback, there is not an attack on you, but there are certain words that are said, which I've had it in the past, and it has felt a little bit more personal than it should be. It should always come from a constructive criticism point of view. It's to help you get better at whatever role you're in, part of your career, whatever stage you're in. It should be there to guide you in a way. So it shouldn't be seen as a negative at all. I don't think. It can be quite hard hitting. And when Ryan said choose your pain, so if you decide not to take the feedback on board today, that could possibly hamper where you are in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. So it's choose your pain correctly. Take the feedback today. It might upset you for the weekend. It might upset you for a couple of days. Take it on board and move on. And that's one thing that I tell myself in my head. If I receive feedback today, maybe linger on it for the evening, fine, but tomorrow's a new day, move on, straight on to the next thing, and use that feedback to help you, because otherwise you just end up being in this continuous loop of self-loathing, or
Yeah,
self-wallowing, I should say.
yeah, definitely. There are people out there and there are forums that are solely negative feedback. It's just people who don't feel good about themselves, who want to go and tear each other down. I don't want to pretend like that's not a thing in our world. It definitely is. But you've got to understand that even the right feedback given in the wrong way still could have merit. That's up to you to take that, whether it hurts you because it's the truth and you at some level agree, or it hurts you because it's just hurtful. Like, that's up to you to kind of pull it apart. And I think the other thing that's important to understand is that you can't action every bit of feedback. Like, you've got to really pick, what do I want to niche down at? What do I want to be an expert at? What do I really want to be known for? What's my legacy going to be as a brand, as a person, as an individual, professionally, or whatever? like you've got to understand that you can only do so much, and picking that this is what I want to be, really having a clear vision, and working with individuals and businesses. Like, I think that the 90s corporate culture really killed people's attractiveness to visions, but they're so important. Imagine jumping in a car and not putting a destination in the GPS. Like where are you going to end up? You have to
Who
know what
knows?
yeah, depends on what type of adventure you're after. But
If you're looking for excitement, yeah, just go.
correct. Yeah. But the whole point is you need to have an end goal, somewhere you're working towards. And if that's clear enough for you, if you have, doesn't need to be to the absolute, like perfectly colored out lines, but if you have a general idea, this is where I'm going, it really helps you to differentiate between feedback that is going to serve you and feedback that is just junk, because it'll go in line, right? Like, you can ask yourself, is this feedback going to help me get to where I want to go? If it is, because I can action it, I can put it into place, that person has done you a huge favor. If it's not, you look at it, you go, does this feedback line up with my goals? No, it doesn't. It's not serving me. Bang, I can move on. And that kind of gives you a bit of a barometer between what's going to be useful to you and what you can potentially just leave behind.
Absolutely. And to your point on picking the feedback, say, for example, say, for example, I was receiving feedback and it was 10 points on what I could do better. Maybe I'll pick 2 of those or 3 of those. So my delivery of the presentation or the way my slides look, are they visually appealing? Focus on those 2 things, because actually combined, that's a really strong position to be in. If you can get your point across fluidly through the slides, that's your storytelling, that's your narrative, and those 2 points married up would be quite nice to focus on. So as you say, if you're having feedback, just pick 2 or 3 points and go from there. And maybe if you write it down, you could always revisit some of the earlier feedback later on, but it's trying not to get so overwhelmed with it.
Yeah, and I think like high performers in particular have this incessant need to constantly be better. Like I was naturally, I'm like wired like that with sport. I've always been wired like that. That's been taught to me with training. That's been taught to me, and it's so positive. But also you need to understand that there's limits, there's levels that, okay, like this is now strayed into no longer serving me. But the reason why that's important is because, like, if you're constantly looking for little areas of improvement, you can form a more appropriate relationship with time. And what I mean by that is we all want to be the best. We all want to be, further down the line than we actually are. But what you have to understand is you can't get to that end point without taking those steps that lead up to it, right? Like, you don't understand the lessons that you're going through right now. You don't know when you're going to need them in the future, but you will need them, right? The skills that you're picking up now, whether that's to take feedback or whether that's to make some improvements on the slides or concentrate on the delivery, whether that's, looking each person in the audience in the eye for 5 seconds, really to talk to them, connect to them, and then move on to the next person. You don't understand that lesson, you needed to learn it in that moment, so that way, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, when you're in a different scenario because you've continued to move yourself forward, these little skills that you've picked up have helped you get there. We all want to be at the end. We all want to be further down the line, but having that appropriate relationship with time means that you learn that you need to go through this to get to that. And without these lessons now, you're not going to be a well-rounded enough individual to be ready to receive what's coming down the line for you.
Absolutely. It's so interesting because obviously with season 1 of the podcast, that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to tap into people right at the beginning of their journey, hidden talent, and telling them it's having the destination in mind is great, but it's the journey. It's how you venture through each, I always like to call them seasons of life, and how you navigate that. in an authentic way. So I definitely agree with the points you've raised. It's so interesting. And there was one other thing I was going to say. I always say on this podcast that I lose my train of thought, because I do, because the guests say so many amazing things and then it just all goes out my mind. But we'll plow along and maybe it'll come back to me. But I did just want to ask you, diving a little bit more into the sports side of things and how you actually came to be where you are now, is there any strategies in place for anybody listening who would like to know a little bit more?
Um, I think so. When when I think about my journey, right? Like my journey has kind of gone through, like you said, there's different seasons, and like I had to really pivot, like the training side of things into like what lessons was that then teaching me, and so as I then went through corporate careers, you have to understand that there's different players. So, for example, on a football side, you can't have 12 strikers, right? Yes, okay, you need to score more goals than the other team to win a game. But more strikers isn't the answer. You have to understand that there's different positions, and each position is with respects to its contribution to the whole. They're just as important as the other ones. The manager has a specific role. The trainers have specific roles. The goalkeeper, the backman, the mids, the strikers, like everyone has a role to play. And you can't expect everyone to be operating at the same level. There's different nuances to their personalities and to their jobs and to the way that they operate. And this is something that you learn like when you're trying to be in a leadership role, or you aspire to a leadership role, whether it's sport or whether it's professional, or even just, if you want to improve your communication person to person. Just because you're motivated by certain things, or just because certain things light a fire in you, it is very unrealistic to think that that same fire is going to be lit in someone else. You have to understand what motivates them. What is it that makes them tick? And once you understand that, it's then about how do you continually position the situation so that they see their motivation in that situation. So if somebody is super motivated by being the best that they can be, or being the top of the leaderboard or whatever, okay, you talk to that when you're talking to them. If someone is not motivated by that, and your go-to is, right, we've got to crush the competition, or we've got to be number one, their eyes are gonna just glaze over when you're speaking. But if you can get onto their level, and like what that takes is genuine communication with that person, genuine interest, and we go all the way back to connection where we started this conversation. If you can connect with that person and understand who they are as a person, what their journey has been, why are they here now, etc., you learn to get the best out of people by adjusting your tact. And it's not about being fake. It's not about pretending like you're something that you're not. I always say, like, who you are with your grandparents on a Sunday afternoon, and who you are with your friends at the pub or the restaurant or the bar on Friday night, they're still the same person. It's just a different version. Your communication style changes, the quality, that everything kind of just adjusts. You're still the same person. You can still be your authentic self. But sport teaches you that everyone is motivated differently, and if you want the best out of them, you have to speak their language, not yours. And that's like, I learned that through my corporate career, often the hard way. I made the mistakes. I'm like, I can be very competitive. It's just like how I am, being an only child as well. But then, that competition element doesn't work for some people. They just don't care. They're more out for the pat on the back, or, they want to be told that they're doing a good job, or whatever it is that motivates them. And I think that's such a deep lesson to kind of really get your head around, because that'll change every relationship that you have in your life. If you can understand that core point, you can adjust your communication style with that person and get the best out of that relationship.
There's about 4 points that now I need to go back to
Cool.
that you said, but going right back to when I lost my train of thought, what I was going to say was when you were saying about the feedback, it reminded me of adaptability and resilience, really, when you're receiving it, being able to adapt to certain situations, as you pointed out as well. If one point you wanted to focus on, and this is actually really key in public speaking, so I'm glad you brought it up, it was connecting with the audience through eye contact. I used to struggle with that a lot. And over the years, that was one thing I said to myself, I really want to get better at. So now, unfortunately, I can't do it if there's 100 people in the room, but I will still make such a conscious effort to, if I was giving a 25-minute presentation, I'd try and make eye contact with about 50 people, I think. That's doable. And I don't mean staring at them in the eyes. I just mean for a quick 1 to 2 seconds, look at them when you say something. And it just invites them in. It's warm, it's comforting. And also it's comforting for me because I see them looking at me and it doesn't feel so frightening, because sometimes it can feel like that when you're on stage and you're speaking and you think, I don't know anybody in this room. It's a room full of strangers. They're just looking at me. Obviously, they're there for a reason, to listen to what I've got to say, but it can still feel quite unnerving. So I really appreciated you saying that, because I think it's so key, not just in public speaking on stage, but when you're at work with a team, in client meetings, any stage of life, if you're at the supermarket or if you're on the bus or the tube or walking around, just having that, embracing that. So I
Yeah,
think that was
no
such
one
an
wants to be spoken at, right? Like
mm,
everyone wants to be
yeah.
spoken to and be involved in in communication. But like we've all been in situations where you know that someone was basically having a conversation with themselves. You just happened to be there. Like it's like that's a very different scenario.
Yeah. And it's so, yeah, it's really tricky, but it's, as you say, it's the feedback. It's just knowing where your strengths and where your improvements are. I never like to say weaknesses, because I don't believe we have any. I think it's just room for improvement constantly. So just your strengths and then knowing where you need to improve. And then moving on to what you mentioned about sports, I think that's such an interesting point to raise in terms of getting to know your team. Each team member is going to be so different in terms of mental and physical qualities and capabilities on and off the pitch. And also, as you, to your point as well, and this applies in the corporate world with employees, some just aren't bothered about competition. Some just aren't naturally attracted to rising up the ranks. And I actually have, funnily enough, had that conversation with a few of my friends recently, because they aspire to be great. Some of their friends don't, and they're also trying to navigate that because the conversations are very different that they have. So it's as you say, it's in sports, but it's also, a lot of people feel that at different stages. Yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting point. Just knowing that if you're competitive, that's great, but not everyone sees the world the way you do. So just being open to others and their experiences.
Yeah, I think we've seen a really tragic example of what happens when people are not willing to open their minds to other people's viewpoints. Just recently, right? Like you cannot get to the point where you're unwilling to listen to any other viewpoint. That's such a dangerous place to be, because essentially what you've told the world is I'm right, everyone else is wrong. Like at some point you might be right on this particular, subject, but at some point you're going to be wrong. And you need to be open to hearing other things and different ways of doing things. And if you're a selfishly driven person, it's just about you, none of this message is going to resonate. This isn't for you, no problems at all whatsoever. Like you can't speak to everybody. But if you're someone who has a vision in mind, and that vision is being part of a highly functioning community, society, team, organization, corporation, whatever, you have to understand that the goal of that community is bigger than your ego, which means that what you feel about certain topics, directions, whatever, you're going to have to adjust for the greater good of achieving that goal. If you can't see past your own blinkers, what you're saying is that the end goal, the greater good for the organization, the company, the community, the society, whatever, is not as important as you being right. And that's, I will, I'm sure you can read between the lines, but that's probably not a very healthy place to be.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it just goes back to our point about collaboration and community, very rightly so. It's never a solo journey. There may be, as I say, seasons of life where you do more independent things, but on the whole, I mean, definitely for me now in the last 12 months, I would say the majority of this year, and then yeah, the last 12 months, I would say I might edit that out because my brain is just, it's mourning. But I would say I go back to the collaboration community piece in the last 12 months for me. A lot of my a lot of my clients and a lot of my work that I do now, it's always through a referral, it's always through networking, it's always through being around other people, feeding off their energy, coming up with a solution and going forth with that. So I wouldn't be able to do my job if I didn't listen to other people and I didn't remain open to their suggestions and their feedback. That's what molds me into who I am today. So if I closed myself off, I probably have to go and find something else to do. So
Mm.
completely agree with what you mentioned. But I do really want to touch on the Founders Live because I think it's fantastic what you're currently up to in terms of the startup scene, founders, giving them exposure. So I want to navigate that a little bit with you as well.
Yeah, so like I explained, like the 4 Ps that I look at, I realized that I was doing a lot of work in the people, the processes, and the placement. But when I took an honest reflection on my business model and what I was bringing to the community, I had to accept the fact that I wasn't doing a lot in that partnership space. I was conscious of, there's very clearly some synergies between these two organizations or people, so let's connect them. But that was really it. And I wasn't comfortable with that being my legacy. I wasn't comfortable with, like that's the only service that I provide. So I really started to look at what were some vehicles, some avenues that I could use to start to put people in rooms that they weren't normally in and interacting with people who maybe they didn't have an opportunity to interact with. And so I mean, I didn't want to just do, like a drinking thing and like there's if people want to go and do that, I don't drink, but that's fine with me. I don't care. I'll stand there and like have a Coke Zero while you drink. I have no issues with it. But that's not the intention for me. The intention was for people to form really good connections, be in rooms with others that they wouldn't normally be in. And so I started to look around, and I was having a conversation with someone in the US, and we were talking about what they're doing online is really good. Their social media, branding, their presence was going really well. But my commentary was that they probably weren't doing very much face to face. They weren't meeting people and forming strong connections. And so I encouraged them to go and find opportunities and to do that. They came back and said, I'm going to these Founders Live events and blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't heard of Founders Live before. So I looked them up. Seattle-based company, quite diverse as far as where they're located. And so I just reached out and I said, wanted to find out a little bit more information. So basically the premise is it is a pitch competition. So 5 founders get 99 seconds each to pitch their business. The crowd then gets 3 minutes to ask them questions about things they want to hear more about, and then the crowd votes afterwards. So it's not, a panel of experts or their friends or whatever. Like the crowd gets to vote, and then the winner comes back up and gets to share more about it. And that just felt like me because, like I said, I wanted there to be an element of fun and competition, and I wanted there to be some sharing and whatever. And so I was, fortunate enough to be able to connect with the CEO, and, we agreed that I would, take this on board, bringing it into Melbourne to begin with. So we ran our first event in May, which was like a huge success. We had a great time. There was a lot of great connections formed. We're doing our second one in October. So it's very, very close. We've got our founders lined up, and it's just a great opportunity for excuse me, for people to meet, and they don't have to be pitching for VC or for capital. They can if they want. There's the opportunity for those collaborations in the crowd, but really, like, the idea is to just go up and get whatever you're after out of the, like, is it just exposure speaking in front of a crowd? Great, we can do that. If it's, I'm looking for key personnel, I really need a CTO, or I really need a good, CMO or whatever, great, go up and, just talk to that. If you need capital, if you need funding, great, go and talk to that. Like, it's not the end result that's really the it doesn't really matter what that is. You can sub anything in there. It's just getting up and talking to a crowd about your business with enough passion for it to land within a very, very short period of time, like a minute and a half, give or take. It goes incredibly quickly. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, I love the concept. I love the idea of it. And like, similar to what we're talking about, like, I looked at our first event and I pulled it apart. Like, what went well? Like, did I like the environment? Did it land as well as it should have? What would I do differently, etc.? And so for our second event, made a few adjustments, whatever. And so by the time we've done 3, 4, 5 of them, like, this event is going to be incredible. And that's not about me. It's about what we can provide to the founders and the people that choose to spend 3 hours with us on the night.
I really love it. When you were talking, I got such a warm feeling in my heart because you're really giving something back, and that's one of my values, really, is just to be there for other people. And the event that you're hosting, obviously there's something in it for you in terms of also being surrounded by all of these people, but on the whole you're really doing something for maybe those who are a little bit more introverted and haven't necessarily had all of that exposure to these types of events, which can be a little bit overwhelming. I've been to founder events myself, and they're not for the faint-hearted. Sometimes I remember I went to one in London because we have some kind of pitching startup events that take place here, and I went to a couple at the beginning of the year. Sometimes there are a couple of hundred people in that room all wanting to pitch. As you say, it's a minute and a half or 2 minutes at some of them, no time at all, and it can feel really overstimulating. I'm used to be very, very introverted. Moving to London, not so much anymore, but I still get a bit, oh God, here we go. Have to mentally get myself ready for some events that I go to, but I think it's absolutely brilliant what you're doing. And as you say, you have, when you're pitching and when you're up there, do whatever feels right. If you just wanted to practice your pitch and you don't necessarily have all of the answers to questions in terms of how much funding or which stage you are at in the process of funding, even if you're not there yet, it's just an opportunity to practice what you might like to say in the future. So I think it's fantastic.
It's great market research, right? Like, when you're trying to deliver a service, you have to understand, what do the customers want? What is the market demanding? And it's immediate response. There's someone in the crowd that is in the industry or wants the service or whatever, and they will ask you a question that will then spark something for you. And they'll come and speak to you after the event, and maybe that connection is formed. But like, when you're looking at bringing a business to life and you're starting a business from scratch, you have to understand, is this just a passion of mine, or is this a need? Is this a broader need? And market research is how you do that. You go and speak to people and assess, one, do people want this? And two, very, very importantly, will people pay for it? And if you haven't answered those two questions categorically, you're probably not in a place where you want to be starting the business, because, the statistics are in the vicinity of about 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. Don't start it unless you have answered those questions. Do people want it, number one, and will people pay for it, number two? So founders is a really good opportunity for you to stress test a few of those things, and people will tell you point blank, like, hey, I don't understand this, or you haven't explained this very well. That is the perfect feedback for you to go and take it, figure out what do you need to adjust, and then come back bigger, better, stronger, which is ultimately going to lead to a better customer experience, because what the end user wants, if you know that inside out intimately, you're in a really good position to provide that, which is essentially all the business is. It's someone with a need and someone with the capabilities of filling that need.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of when musicians have, what do they do? Musicians, before they're launching an album, they'll have groups of supporters come along and listen to the album before they launch. And that's
Like
their way of,
album
as you
audit
say,
time, yeah.
stress testing and deciding whether, well, it just makes the supporters feel wanted and part of a community. They get the opportunity to listen to their musician, but it's a great market research for them. There's a name for the group and I can't remember it, but it's the same as your events, the opportunity to see how the crowd reacts, because you're giving accountability to the audience to vote, and then the winner can come up and give more information. So I think all in all, it's a well-rounded event. It's the opportunity to network, build that community, but also trial and error for your company.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, Founders is not my company. I've just been privileged to be able to bring it into Australia. So I'm sure there's local opportunities for people to go along and have a look at it for themselves. So if they haven't already, I would definitely recommend going and checking it out and providing support, because it's supported by locals. Like to be a city leader, you probably live in the area, and so it's an opportunity for you to go and meet some good business people that are local to you, as well, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, so that I could continue to support the business community. I could meet people who was just on this, starting in their journey or early in their journey and all that kind of stuff. Like I love that. Like whether or not I can, I don't care about the business opportunities if I'm honest. Like I really don't. It's got nothing to do with that for me. If I can have a small part of someone's journey, like that's more than enough for me, like to see them kind of go to that next step. And if Founders event, whether they were a participant or just came along to watch, if that was a part of it, then awesome.
I feel exactly the same way when I think about the podcast and the guests that come on, just having a small part, listening in to their conversation for 45 minutes or an hour. And then, as I said to some of the guests before, I'd love to see what you're up to in the next 12 months, because as you say, you have that small part, but it's watching them go off and just thrive and do so well in their chosen field. So it's, sometimes I mean, I don't like goodbyes, so sometimes I find it really sad when I have to say goodbye, but it's just having that moment with somebody, and it's the same for you, just seeing the startups, and you just never know where life's going to take them or where it's going to
Mm.
take the company, so it's quite special, really. But one thing I wanted to mention, which we haven't mentioned at all, and it's because I listened to a podcast this morning, the power of visualization. I can't remember whether it went back to your earlier point about have the destination in mind, but just know that it's a journey. The podcast I was listening to was talking about the power of visualization. So visualize it going well, but actually sometimes do also visualize the setbacks. And when we were talking about feedback, it reminded me, if it's not what you want, still visualize possibly receiving that. How would you navigate it?
I I'm really big on breath work, on meditation, and the reason for that is like capitalism. Like, and I'm not commentary on capitalism itself, but by its nature, it is very information heavy. We're constantly bombarded with like the Formula One is just a phenomenal example of this. Like you would lose track of how many, no pun intended, but lose track of how many advertisements you were confronted with within a 10-second period in the F1. Like you look at the jerseys, they look at the protective equipment, the helmet, the car, all of the like there's so much advertising. And like you watch when you go for coffee with somebody, two people sitting in a restaurant across from each other. One gets up to go to the toilet. The other one instinctively grabs their phone and starts scrolling or looking at whatever, right? So I say that to say this. We're constantly stimulated. There is always things grabbing, fighting for our attention. the actual process of learning and training your brain to slow down and to not pay attention to a million different things. Like getting out in nature is one of the best ways to do it, because you go and you can, you get fresh air and you get a high level of oxygen, and you get to kind of just be surrounded by less things that want something from you. Now you get to slow your mind down. If you're not training your mind to slow down, this is one of the reasons why people struggle to fall asleep at night, is because I can't switch my brain off and I've been scrolling for 3 hours. And it's like, okay, well, that in that 3 hours, you consumed a million different pieces of content. There's no wonder your brain is hyperstimulated. So meditation and breath work, and whether you use it spiritually or not, that's completely your call, but it is just about slowing your brain down and training it to do it. So if someone listens to this like, right, I'm going to go and meditate for half an hour, the first time I've ever done it, wrong thing to do, right? Like go and just do 1 minute of conscious breathing, pay attention to nothing apart from the wind going in your nose and out of your mouth. Do it for a minute. You'll find that your mind is all over the place. You're still thinking about work and family and bills and whatever. But you do it for a week, then you do it for a month, then you do it for 3 months. Then your mind is trained, and for 1 minute, there's nothing else going on. Then you extend that to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. How does that tie into visualization? Visualization is the process of blocking everything else out and just locking in on this one thing. I want to see this clearly. We don't have crystal balls. We can't see the future, but let me lock in on this one thing. If you're not training your brain how to do that, that visualization is going to be really, really difficult. The practice of meditation and breath work will help you improve the quality of your visualization, so you start to see things more clearly, and maybe the strategy becomes clearer, maybe the journey becomes clearer, maybe the ability to differentiate between feedback that's going to serve me and feedback that's not going to serve me becomes clearer, because now my brain is shut out. I don't have that Formula One level of content and like marketing coming at me. I can just focus on this. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate for for visualization. Like you have to see it in your mind to believe it, and then you can formulate the strategy, like that visionary, that figuring out where I want to go. You hit the nail on the head for me. I'm all about it.
Good. No, it definitely for me. If I think about public speaking, I always visualize the end result. I always visualize me saying whatever presentation on stage in front of the audience. I even go a step further. And for me, it's not that I'm superstitious and it's not that I have rituals, so to speak, but either the night before or a couple of nights before, I will wear the clothes that I'm going to wear. This is just a personal preference, but I need to embody how I'm going to actually look on the day. So the clothes, the shoes, I walk around my room, I say the words. And it's not, again, that I need to memorize the script, because I don't tend to do that. I ad-lib a lot. I like to just feed off the audience, but I need to be, in order for me to be really present, it also comes down to what I'm wearing as well. So it's a whole thing in my mind,
Well,
but that's visualization to the next step for me.
I couldn't agree more. Like they always say in sport, you should never try something on game day that you haven't done in training, right? And the
Mm.
point of that analogy is that you should be doing things as close to game day speed as possible. And if that involves you, because I've done the triathlons, the marathon, whatever. You can't buy a pair of new shoes and the first time you wear them is on the day. It doesn't work like that, because you need to wear them in. You need to, like, there's certain things that can go wrong. So to get into costume, to get into character, to get into that correct mindset, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing weird about it. Like it's you're putting yourself in a position where you're now comfortable, and maybe you're 100% comfortable in the outfit and you can deliver your best, but maybe when you when you put it on and like you were like practicing, you realize I'm not 100% comfortable with this, or I don't like this, or whatever the case, and you can adjust it. You'd rather know then early when you've still got 2 or 3 days to make those adjustments rather than figuring it out half an hour before. And then the only thing you can think about is how the shoes are uncomfortable or like I'm not happy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's your audience deserves the best version of that presentation, the best version of you. They deserve that. It's your responsibility to do everything leading up to that point to deliver that for them. And if you've taken care of the preparation, you've taken it seriously, you've put yourself in a good headspace, and you go out there and you deliver, you can hand on heart say, I gave this my all. If you skipped steps, if you didn't do the things that you were supposed to and you bombed, or you only delivered to 80%, like that's, you haven't respected the audience, you haven't respected your customer or your client enough. That's why, that 80% or 60%, if you've taken care of everything you can take care of and things still go wrong outside of your control, I'm not saying it's easy, but it happens. You can't worry about that kind of stuff. But if you've done all the right things, prepared properly, you've put yourself in a position to succeed, you can live with the outcome.
Definitely. And it goes back to that adaptability piece as well. You can't control external factors. You just have to navigate them as best as possible. One thing that I also like to do, and it goes back to being overstimulated with all of the content on presentation day, or if I'm with a client, no phones. I don't allow it. So from the minute I wake up, I have my alarm set on my phone, of course, but I switch that alarm off. I do watch the news in the morning. That's just standard practice. But outside of that, I don't go online at all until that day is done. If it's a couple of days, maybe I don't go on for a couple of days. Maybe it gets to that because I need to be so present. And I find with social media and with content, I can't be as present because, as you say, you're thinking about all of this content. You just can't be there for the people in front of you. So that's, again, just another thing that I factor into what I do around kind of certain activities. But everyone's different, and certain things work differently for other people.
Yeah, that's your preparation process, right? Like I know people who, feel like, being on YouTube right before they present or they do whatever it is that they're about to do.
Helps them.
That,
Yeah.
yeah, because they're not worried about, not thinking about what I go out there, but they had gone through. The reason why I can back that in is because they didn't just make that up. They tried different iterations and they found what works best for them. That particular strategy works best for them. They understand themselves, their nervous system, the way that they operate. They found something, they've tested it, they've gone with it. Great, no problems at all. You've obviously gone through a similar process where you tried, to be stimulated and to try to, and then you realize that doesn't work for you. And so you unplug. Great. You found what works for you. Perfect. It works for you. You don't need to break what's working.
Exactly. And like I said before, it's just finding what works for you. It's just trial and error with a lot of things. It's just finding out what works for you and going with that. But we talked a lot today about so many different things. I'm wondering, before we round up, are there any last minute strategies that you would put forward? Going back to the Founders Live for a second, I'm presuming that the attendees are solely based in Australia. Do you ever have anybody travel over to come and attend?
So because Founders is like global, so people can just jump on, literally just, chat GPT or just Google Founders Live. There's
Mm,
likely Founders Live events, in
mm,
locations close to people. Like I'm very blessed to have such a great network. So I've had people come from different parts of Australia just to, to visit my event, which is, awesome. And the
mm.
idea is to kind of expand outwards, but you said a different strategy, and I'm so big on this one piece of advice. Don't be scared to sell. You're not going to break people's trust if you sell yourself or you sell your product or you sell your idea or your vision. Like people expect to be sold to. We're so used to it. It happens all the time. If you don't put yourself out there and say, hey, this is what I do. This is the problem that I solve for my customers. This is how I do it. And if this is of interest to you, I would love to speak to you. You're not going to burn all of the trust and rapport that you have built with somebody. Like, don't be scared to put yourself out there. You're running a business, you're trying to build something or whatever. Don't think that, like that you can't close. You have to be closing with just telling people, this is what I do. If you want to speak to me, this is the best way to get in touch with me, whatever. You will be blown away by how many people do 90% of the work. Don't attempt a close, or don't say, this is the business that I'm looking for or whatever. That last 10% would change the trajectory of their business, of their life, of their family, just by saying, I do business. Like, it is so okay to say that. And a reason why, I know we've been speaking about energy, we're speaking about, giving people a hand up and all that kind of stuff. Like, for any business person that's listening to this, take an honest stock of yourself and go, in the last 2 weeks, how many times have I missed the opportunity to just say, you can do business with me. This is the problem that I solve. This is how I do it. Here, reach out to me. Like, for those of us who didn't grow up in the social media generation, putting ourselves out there is a little bit like, oh, I don't want to be bragging or whatever. Like, you need to bin that idea. It's not serving you anymore. Like, it's okay to sell. Please, business people, sell. Like, tell people, I'm a consultant. Like, me personally, I help people to scale to the point where you will need a C-suite. I come in and I help people get to that point by providing fractional COO services. I come in and I have a look at your people, your processes, your placement, your partnerships. I do that. Yes, I charge for my services, but it's worth it because you will get to be where you want to be. And if that sounds like something that interests you, let's chat, etc. That's so okay to do. Please just give yourself the green card to do that. And like, I promise you, it'll change your business. Maybe not on day one, but you do it consistently over the next 6 months, like your business will be in a very, very different place. So as far as the strategy goes, like, don't be scared to close.
I completely agree with that. And to be honest, it's one thing I struggle with because I am the same as Ryan. I come from a consultancy background. Selling is very much in our nature in terms of speaking to clients all the time. We're talking about services and products, but I've actually found going solo and putting myself out there, it's been a journey in itself, really, especially LinkedIn. There's just so many people talking somewhat about the same thing, not really offering solutions. So one thing I would possibly say is don't be afraid to sell, but definitely have that solution mindset. So when you're writing a post and putting it out there, what can you actually offer for somebody else, and not just churning out consistent pieces of content every single day because it might be hampering you rather than offering you what you want. So I am a little bit more strategic these days. I possibly put out 2 or 3 pieces of content a week, but there's definitely recommendations in there, key takeaways. So I try and base my posts around that. But it's been a journey because I don't really self-indulge that much, if I'm honest. I'm not really one that likes to. I would probably never put a post out that, I don't know, I would just never really put something out that was focused on me or an experience that I've had. It would always be business driven. So everyone's different. But as Ryan said, definitely don't be afraid to sell and put yourself out there, because that's how you get business. That's how the world works these days, really. It is, a lot of it's on social media now. We are seeing more people want to step away and return to offline events. As Ryan mentioned with the Founders Live, that's very much in person. Those types of events offer that possibility to connect with people, and I think a lot of selling is done in person in the right way, because you can get a feel for the person, their energy. So sometimes online isn't always the best route, but it's finding that balance between both. I think they both serve the different purposes, online and offline.
There's definitely a strategy, right? Like you can't just pull a trigger. It needs to go in conjunction with everything else. Like the point is, if you're doing the other 90%, don't sell yourself short by not doing the final 10%. Like, back yourself in. You deserve it. You have every right to ask for the business. Someone else is going to. Someone's going to serve them up an Instagram ad. Someone's going to serve them up a targeted Facebook ad. Please, if you've done 90% of the work, don't sell yourself short. Like, just put yourself out there to be in line for that business.
Absolutely. And we've touched so much today, and it reminds me of personal branding. Again, with the business branding, just that's the final piece of the puzzle, really. You build yourself up over time. You have this fantastic portfolio of clients that you've worked with and projects that you've been on. The last piece of the puzzle really is to sell it all and put it all together and put yourself forward. So that definitely reminds me of that. But spoken so much today about different things in terms of strategy, Ryan's background from sports through to corporate, and now helping in the consultancy route, but Founders Live, being a part of that, helping other people. It's been a fantastic episode, Ryan, and I want to say thank you very much for joining me today, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Pretty good. Thanks so much. Bye.